I completely understand why a lot of people are struggling to support Kamala Harris, given what the Biden administration has done and its responsibility for the destruction of Gaza and now the destruction of significant parts of Lebanon as well. But I think that there are arguments for Harris, even on the question of Palestinian rights, that are worth thinking about. And there are a couple that I want to mention. They're really not mine. They're ideas that I've heard from other people who I really respect. And one of them is made by the Palestinian American Democratic strategist Rania Batrice. Rania makes the point that this movement for Palestinian freedom, which has grown so much over the last year, will struggle to continue to grow under a Trump presidency in the same way, in part because the Trump presidency will put such tremendous pressure on people of progressive values on so many issues. There will be so many crises: the crisis of mass deportation, the crisis of a government that doesn't care about climate change, the crisis of a government that supports massive police brutality, the crisis of a government that's appointing judges that basically put women's lives in danger and the lives in danger of anyone who's having an abortion. That all of that pressure will mean that there is less time for people to organize and work on this question of ending the war in Gaza, ending the war in Lebanon, and moving towards ending apartheid in Israel and giving Palestinians basic human rights. And that under Harris' campaign, even though Harris herself hasn't shown a lot of evidence that she would be better, at least it means that there won't be as much of a crisis on these other fronts, and people will afford to have more time to focus on this issue. Somebody else who has thought about this, and I think a really interesting way, is actually a subscriber to my newsletter, The Beinart Notebook, who made the point to me that I thought a really interesting point recently, that that the future of the movement for Palestinian rights in the United States depends on America remaining a liberal democracy. That if we hope to see these shifts in public mood, especially in the Democratic Party, transform itself into a shift in government policy, that is much more likely to take place if the United States still has relatively free elections, right? The more successful Donald Trump is towards moving America to an authoritarian system, the harder it is to translate these kind of shifts in public opinion, especially among young people, into the political process. And so Trump's threat to American liberal democracy is also a threat to the folks who want to change U.S. policy, because liberal democracy is the mechanism through which you would change U.S. policy on Israel and Palestine, and a more authoritarian political system, one more dominated by political elites who are less accountable, is likely to be one that's more likely to keep the status quo when it comes to Palestine and Israel.